Hi, everybody. We're going to begin. So before we begin, I just would like to go through a bit of a guideline. As you know, we are currently using the Zoom platform to record this webinar for future viewing. And we've made things as secure as possible. And I'd recommend that if you want to have more security on your end, then you can certainly change your name to just show your first name if you prefer. And if otherwise, then if you have any questions at the end of our presentation, we are happy to answer those. We will stop the recording when the presentation is complete. And at the bottom of your screen, you will see some control bars there, and you'll see some icons. And one of them is a Q&A box. And the Q&A box is where you can put your questions if you have any questions. And then also, Susan is also going to be doing a bit of an interaction throughout her webinar, which you will be asked to put some information into the chat box, which is also located at the bottom of your screen as well. So this webinar today is actually the fourth webinar in our safety series. And today, Susan is going to be presenting on safety planning and tips for mitigating risks for person with dementia and their care partners. And so I'm going to pass it over to Susan. So enjoy the presentation.
Hi, everyone. So welcome, and we have a big, long title, and there's lots to cover. So it's great to be presenting today. I've been in the back, Dina and I are kind of exchanging this, so I've been in the background the last couple of weeks. So back to presenting today, which is very exciting. So just to go through a little bit of what we're going to cover today. So we'll just do a quick overview of some safety concerns, tips for maintaining independence for people who are living with dementia, looking at some specific resources for people who are living with dementia. And again, I'll show you actually those in some detail. Looking from the care partner perspective, some tips to reduce the risk of going missing. Planning ahead. So how do we plan? I'm a big planner, and I'll talk a little bit more about that and why it's so important. And some resources for the care partner. And a lot of these resources, again, might be helpful for both. So it's not to say these are resources specifically for people with dementia, and these are specifically for care partners. So take a look through all of them. They're lovely. And future webinars. So we'll just talk about what's coming up next. Okay, so what are some safety concerns that you might have? And we'll go through some of these, and there's going to be some that are a little bit more heightened just because of the COVID-19 restrictions, etc. But some of these have always been around with us. So we'll go through them together. So going out in an unfamiliar area. So this might cause a little bit more concern. And again, keeping in mind that these safety concerns are going to vary from person to person and from day to day. Navigating an area with similar looking buildings or those without identifying features. So this can be frustrating for many of us, especially as we have a bit more uniform design. Things kind of all look the same. So when we don't have things that are distinct to help us, that can be a little more challenging. Going out later in the day. So if we're tired, maybe we're in a hurry, maybe we're more likely to run into some challenges in that situation. Not having a plan in place, and this is why we're doing this webinar, to look at how do we have a plan. So it's better to have a plan and not need it than to not have a plan, obviously. And looking again at those concerns related to the impacts of living with dementia. So again, everyone's unique. Everyone's going to have different challenges from day to day, and that's again true for any of us, but again, especially as the dementia might be progressing, people may experience different challenges with that. And as I alluded to, people may be feeling a lot more isolated right now, particularly with COVID-19 restrictions. So if people are inside a lot more, they might be feeling more restricted, as any of us are. But the person with dementia in particular may be feeling a bit more anxious or restless and just need to get out of the home. So that can be a bigger concern right now. So this is our first interactive question, and I try to think of a way of doing this. I just want to get some input from those of you who are on the webinar. So I'm going to ask you to use your chat box. And the question is, what is a safety idea or strategy that you're currently using? So it could be, again, carrying a notebook, filling out some kind of ID form. So if you could take a moment to type something into the chat box, that would be great. Okay, so I see a few people are mentioning the ID card, which is wonderful. I'm not sure if you're using the one that I'm going to be showing you, but if not, you can take a look at that one as well. Okay, see if any other ideas come up. Yeah, so some good responses with the identification card. I'm really happy to hear that, see that, I should say. Okay, so we'll move along. Okay, so I'm going to read, it's a bit of a long poem, so bear with me, but I came across this, and this is a poem called Wandering Along the Beach, and it's written by Kate Swaffer. And if you haven't heard of Kate, she is a very passionate, very active dementia advocate who's from Australia, down under, and she is the founder of an advocacy group called Dementia Alliance International, I believe it's called, and she based out of Australia, but it's international, and she is the president of that, and she herself is living with dementia, but she travels around the world. She's very active, has gone back and done a lot more schooling herself. So this poem was written by Kate Swaffer back in 2014. And thinking about what this sort of how this impacts both the person living with dementia and how we support and respond to people who are living with dementia throughout that dementia journey. So I'll go through this. Before a diagnosis of dementia, if I went walking, even if it was wandering through a shopping center for pleasure, it was still referred to as walking. Wandering along the beach with the sand between my toes. Was still considered walking. When I go walking, even if I get lost, I am not a wanderer, I'm a person. Sometimes people like to go for walks, even people with dementia. Sometimes people get lost, even people with dementia. Sometimes people walk because they are looking for something, even people with dementia. Sometimes people go walking because they are bored, even people with dementia. Sometimes people go walking because they might be trying to escape or manage the boredom of living in an aged care facility. They might be feeling like they are in a prison, locked up even when they are not criminals. Sometimes people walk for exercise, even people with dementia. Before aged care, people were involved in habitual walking almost all the time. Walking to the kitchen to get a cup of tea, walking to the bathroom, walking to the shed, walking to the clothesline, walking to the shops. Living in the age of care does not mean people with dementia wish to stop walking. Oddly, before a diagnosis of dementia, doctors tell us to get or keep fit. And that walking is one of the best exercises for us. Even more oddly, when we have dementia, this must stop, as then walking is referred to as wandering, a challenging behavior that needs managing. People with dementia are still real people, living their lives just as they did before acquiring the label of dementia. People with dementia are not wanderers, poor feeders, aggressives, or demented sufferers. People with dementia still wish to live well, but get very little support from others for well-being or for improving our quality of life, including to go walking. Walking is good for us and fun. It is not a challenging behavior. So that is, again, a poem written by a dementia advocate, and just thought it gave a perspective of another person to this context. So I wanted to then now get into some tips for the person living with dementia. So again, for people who want to stay active and still walk and be out and about, these are some important tips to sort of empower people living with dementia to stay active but still feel safe. So the first one, and if you are associated with our society, you may have seen this card. We also have one that is a version for care partners. So it could be having ID and important information with you at all times. So this is not the only thing. So again, in your wallet or in your purse, again, carrying important identification with you. So it could be a card like this. It could be a medical alert safely home card that includes information about emergency contacts, home address, any other important information, medical information, prescriptions, medical concerns. Carrying your health card with you, and even including on your health card a sticker that indicates that you are living with dementia. Wearing potentially some personal identification around your neck or on a cord or lanyard. I've seen people do that before. And again, carrying a card such as the one that's on the screen, just to help you to get some support if you might need it. Memory aids. So these are great ideas. Again, you can have, again, a list of important names and contact information, including your own. You can have that on your phone. You can have it in a notebook. Keep some familiar walking routes with you. You can have it on your phone, again, GPS, or on a notebook. So great to carry a little notebook with you and a pen or pencil just to jot down some information or reminders. Keep note of some landmarks that you might be passing as you're on your way. Indicate so you can know where your route home is. Also, if you have your car with you, note down the location of your car, especially if you're in a busy parking lot, or if you're out locally. We have some Springbank Park, for example, and some just directions about where you're wanting to go, just as that little reminder. You can also have a map with you of your area or neighborhood and circle, again, where you're going and also where you're coming from. You can put a star beside your destination or beside where your home is. I know I'm a map geek. I love maps. I sometimes use GPS on my phone, but I still love maps. So sticking to a routine and maintaining consistency. So again, walking at the same time every day, taking a familiar path and visit familiar places. And if you're going to a particular building, using the same entrance all the time. And again, that might be now, again, you're not going out to as many buildings, but again, if you're going to a hospital, maybe you have regular appointments, the hospital will indicate at this time which entrance you have to use. So it may not be the one that you're most familiar with, but so you might want to mark that on a map of the building, for example, just so you have that reminder with you. And it could be just to consider leaving a note. So I'm just going to go back for a moment. Leaving a note for a family member, just to let them know your route and your schedule, just so they're feeling a little less worried about you as you're out. So some further tips, and I really like this one. Visual reminders. So this is something that you can leave on your door as you go out, and it could just be a sign that says, "Are you tired today?" And if you look at that and you're like, "Gosh, I am really tired," that could be a sign that maybe it's not the best time to go out. Maybe you're not as alert and potentially at a higher risk of getting lost. So that's just a little reminder for you. And you know what? Maybe I'll put this off for another time. And it's important, though, to change the sign up, because sometimes if it's the same sign all the time, then we tend to kind of disregard it after a little while. So just sort of mix up the sign. So being aware of your surroundings. So paying attention to those landmarks or other visual cues when you're out on your own. Little fact about me, I used to live in Tokyo, and Tokyo, if you've ever been there, is probably the most maps, it's not built on a grid system. So everyone got around by looking at, okay, I'm going to turn right at the 7-Eleven and then look for this, certain kind of tree, and then I'm going to turn right there. So everything was based navigating on landmarks. So they are really helpful and they're more visual. If you are adept at technology or you like that, it's great. You can have a phone with GPS, different apps to help you. And certainly we'll be talking more about technology in future webinars, hopefully. and just being open to receiving support. So it could be looking at having a walking buddy, and again, we want to make sure that we're maintaining physical distance, but it could be having someone out with you, and again, walking, it's nice to have company, obviously, and a contact person. So let somebody know where you're going, and again, let them know when you're going to be back. We kind of alluded to that before. And just have that check-in point. And that might make you feel a little more comfortable as well in going out, that somebody is kind of got their, is keeping an eye out for you as well. Okay. So I just wanted to show you some of the resources, and these are all, there's some links in here, and the links will be shared after the recording, and you'll be able to click on these. But this is from Finding Your Way, and I'm just going to show you what this looks like. Should come up in a moment. So if you go to this website, you'll be able to access resources. And this is the Find Your Way website, which is part of the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario. And if you scroll down, lots of great information, but you'll see some information here. And the one that I'm referring to is right here on the right. Okay. Great. So it just goes through a little bit of what we've talked about. So just some other physical reminders, and certainly if this is something that you want a hard copy of, just let your support worker know, and we can make sure that you can get this. This is also on the site that I just showed you, on the same site as Living Safely with Dementia. Some great resources in here, and not just about the risk of going missing, some other great tips about safety related things as well. Some of the great resources related to what we're talking about today are on pages 3 and 9. Another wonderful resource that was produced by a group out of the University of Waterloo, which is called MERIP. It's now kind of under the umbrella of Research Institute on Aging at Waterloo. They're called Bias Forest Guides. And this one in particular is really helpful. I'm actually using some other information in this presentation today. It's got information both for the care partner and for the person living with dementia. And these were developed in direct consultation with people living with dementia and their care partners. So this information came from the ideas of people who are actually living this journey. So this is a great guide that I actually found from Australia. So again, I got our friends from down under. And again, it's really, again, written with the perspective of people living with dementia. So that's it there. And again, I'm using a lot of the information from this guide today. So you can click on that or access it. Again, if you'd like a hard copy, let us know and we can print that off for you. So next I'm going to move into a little bit more information for care partners, but again, this information is great for both the person living with dementia and the care partner as well. And you'll see I have a little asterisk beside the word missing. And this just means, again, what is, when is missing or not missing. So more thinking about an unanticipated departure from the home. So looking at carrying out daily activities, so having that kind of routine. So there is a good idea to have a daily plan, and looking at planning, having that routine, and thinking about, I know for us, now that we're working from home, it was really important in the beginning to switch into just keeping that routine, and that makes things a little bit easier to adjust to this new reality. So we've talked about some of these before in some of our earlier webinars. And there are some great resources. Number one is, I'll refer to a specific tool, actually from the US. It's an actual sample plan. And that, again, helps with that routine. And thinking about when is the most likely time of the day when the person may go. And often we get to know people's routines. We might get to know, gosh, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I start to notice something, and this is when I need to kind of put a plan in place. So thinking about, can I readjust my plan for the day so that there's stuff happening at that time, so the person's less likely to want to go out. So thinking like activities or exercise, can I incorporate exercise into that time of the day so that the person might feel a little less anxious, a little less agitated or restless, and they're busy, they're doing something meaningful. And next one is looking at reassure the person. We talk about validation. So if the person wants to leave or go home or go to work, what have you, I'm going to use communication that is focused on exploring, the feeling behind this and validating that. So we want to hopefully refrain from correcting. So, you're not going to work. You're not working anymore. You could say, we're staying here tonight. We're safe and I'll be with you. We can go home in the morning after a good night's rest. So again, letting the person know that you're with them and they're safe, and try to kind of dig a little bit to figure out what the emotion is behind this. I know that we've mentioned this before in past webinars. Again, ensuring basic needs are met. So is the person hungry? What have you? Again, exploring that. Yeah, I dug around for this picture. So avoiding busy places. So if you again, we want to really at this particular time, especially during COVID, be avoiding busy places especially. But if there's a place that is a bit busier, like a park or a trail, that can be a little bit harder for the person to be going to right now and may make them feel more anxious. So especially during this time, we want to avoid places that are busy. So these are some additional things, especially if the person living with dementia has progressed a little bit, looking at within the home, placing locks that are out of the line of sight. So if you're, again, maybe in the middle of the night, that you're not worried about the person leaving. This is not to say that we want to lock people into a home. So if somebody's living alone, we're not locking them in. That would be very, very dangerous. But within the home, we might change the location of the lock. And using devices that might signal when a door or window is opening. So it could be a chime, just an indication. So there's some fairly low cost ones. If you want some ideas, again, please check in with your support worker. They can help you to kind of navigate this a little bit. And or some more sophisticated home alarm type systems, but sometimes it can just be a simple thing. So the supervision point, again, is really linked back to what we talked about around routines and looking for patterns. So during those times of the day that you're more concerned, that is when we need to kind of make sure that we're kind of just with the person and spending more time with them. And again, being mindful not to leave someone alone, especially if they're in a new or changed surrounding, because that can be very overwhelming and cause people to feel more anxious if they're in a new environment. Keeping the environment consistent, and this could be looking at keeping a clock. So this is a great example of a type of clock that I've seen used, and I have family using it. It just helps a bit with orientation, and if the person is up in the middle of the night, then they can see this, okay, oh, it's night, it's not morning, and it's a quick tip for that person to know the time of the day and what's going on, and it might help to ease that anxiety. If there are car keys, again, that could be a trigger if the person sees the keys that they want to leave. So that if we keep those out of sight, then there's not that trigger that the person wants to go, oh, I need to go, and there's my car keys. If you do have some outdoor space, if you're in a home or a condo or something where you have a bit of yard, that's wonderful, especially right now and it's getting into spring. If you're able to have like a front yard or a backyard that has a secure fence around it, that's wonderful. It just gives the person both of you really an opportunity to be out and to have that security. And again, just thinking about that. So some of these tips again come from our Australian document. So thank you to them. And again, we want to encourage people to be outside, and that's wonderful to get that fresh air, but keeping it a little bit more secure. So planning ahead, and I said before, I like this concept. I'm all about planning. I know when I first started talking about this a number of years ago when our Finding Your Way initiative first really kicked off. I talked about having a plan. You have your plan A, and then you should probably have a plan B, maybe a plan C and a plan D. So no plan is foolproof. No plan is going to work 100% of the time. So it's great to have a number of strategies at hand. So what are some ways that we can plan? So keep a list of people to call for help if you need them. So have that at the ready. So obviously police 911, have it ready. Some neighbors have those numbers available right where you know where to access them. So ask some of your neighbors, your friends and family to call you if they see your family member with dementia alone. Again, if this is not something that would be usual. So again, we talked before about kind of cueing people and letting them know that this is my routine, and that's great. And then if you saw somebody outside of that routine, then it might be a trigger to go, that's not Mary's usual routine. Maybe I should give somebody a call. A big thing, keeping a recent close-up photo and updated medical information on hand. So if you need it, then you've got it available. You don't have to, in the moment of panic or worry, you don't have to think about that in the moment. You've got it available. And I'll show you an example of an ID form. And just know your neighborhood. So think about, where are some places in my neighborhood that I would be concerned about, thinking about places that are a little bit more dangerous, or a busy traffic area, the river, what have you. So just be mindful of the flow of your neighborhood. Oh, I can put that one up here. Getting ahead of myself here. So the form I wanted to show you, and this may be the one that you're using, if not, it's readily available. And it was just updated last year. It's much nicer to use, and you can actually, if you have a printer at home, you can fill it in all online and then print it, or we can get a copy to you and you can fill it out. So I'll just show you what this looks like. Bear with me a moment here. So this is it. So this is the ID form that is from the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario through their Finding Your Way initiative. And you'll see it's 5 pages, so it's got a lot of information here. So your basic information, the appearance of the person, general health and wellness information. This would be on any kind of form. And some of the things too to consider, it's got a lot of information here. So it could also lead to looking at other risk factors that you might be concerned about if the person were to be missing. And then basic health information, of course. And then a little bit more about personality and the person's life. So that way, if people are looking for this individual, then they've just got a bit more information to go on, and might help police to know where to look or what kind of strategies to use. And I saw an example, actually, the OPP did a great video. They were getting involved with, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but Medic Alert program, and the police in many parts of our province now are tapped into the back end of that through something called Connect Protect. So that basically gives the police 24/7 access to information on a Medic Alert database. And one of the videos they showed, the person, it was actually a person with a mental health concern, and they knew by looking at this that the person had a dog, and they knew the dog's name. So when they approached the person, they were able to talk about the dog and gain that person's trust right away. So that's some great information to have. And again, some ideas here. So what could cause this person more distress? What are some ways to help calm this person down and reassure them? That can be helpful. So these are, again, information about the family or other people that are important to them. Some important life moments. There's some great information to fill in here. And then other modes of transport. So if a person loves going out for walks, again, having that, and just to put down some information about the vehicle, if they did have access to the vehicle, or they're still regularly driving and you're concerned. Previous address, and this is important because, again, people might go back to a home where maybe they haven't lived for a long time. So having that information is really key. And one thing I'm not sure if it's on here, but it's information that's good. It's not here, is if it's a woman and think about her maiden name. So if in the moment she's not responding to her married name, what was her maiden name? So you can try that. And then some additional tips. So some of these are things that I've incorporated into this presentation. So lots of great information on that form. So I just wanted to take a moment to go through that with you. And certainly if you have questions about how to fill it out or what's important, what to include, please do talk to your support worker. So some more information about planning ahead. And this is really interesting. Is the individual right or left-handed? And that is because if somebody is gone, missing, generally they follow the direction of the dominant hand. So that's sort of the first kind of way that they will turn. So that's quite interesting. Generally people will go fairly in a straight line, but they might have preferential preference for that right or left hand. So this is on the ID form. So keeping a list of the places where the person may go. So if they say, you know, even before this COVID, they always went to Tim Hortons to meet friends. So I'm gonna have that on the form. I alluded to this, and I kind of alluded to why it's really important. So consider enrolling person in kind of a wandering response service. And that could be, again, Medical or Safe in the Home is an official partner of the Alzheimer's Society Canada here in London. And you can access that information from your support worker or online. And I have the link at the end of the presentation in our resources section. And again, with that new partnership with the police, they're also partnered with the London Police locally and the OPP provincially. And that gives 24/7 access. And again, it's important to include a photo if you're submitting that as well, because that goes onto that registry. Label clothing, and that's a tip I pulled from that Finding Your Way form. Tags on shoes, and this is something I heard from somebody a number of years ago. A fairly simple thing. You should be able to get tags. I know Medical Alert has shoe tags, but even from running stores often have these. I'm a runner myself, and I should be doing this, but it could be even as a runner, if I were to fall and something happens, I've got that information on my shoe as well. So it can just be something as simple, put it on shoes if the person goes out regularly with walking shoes. And this was something on the form, the Finding Your Way form, and I hadn't thought about before. It might be something that we don't want to consider, but it was about saving the scent of the individual. And you say you can swab with a cotton ball the armpit of the person and put it in a sterilized container. And that can be helpful if, again, we hope this doesn't happen, but if the person were to go missing and they bring in search dogs, then that helps for the dogs to get the scent. Consider technology. Again, this will hopefully be a future topic, but in the interim, you can go onto the Finding Your Way website, and there is a technology section there, and you can look at different types of technology and see what their different features are. And we're not recommending one technology over another, but it will talk about how those different technologies work and their pros and cons and what their different features are and their costs. This is something, take a photo of the individual each morning. This is actually something I heard from a care partner in the past, and I thought it was a really great idea. So again, every day, make it a habit, you could take a picture of the two of you. And it could just be, you know what, we're gonna take this picture, make it a routine, and we're gonna send it to a family member, just as a greeting every day. So maybe send it to a son or daughter or a family member to say, hey, here we are, you know, here's our daily picture to you. But that can be, again, a great way of knowing what the person was wearing, because in the moment we may not recall what the person was wearing, especially in a time of stress. And one tip I didn't consider earlier, I got from one of the resources, the person living with dementia said that one of their strategies was that if they were going out, they always wore the same color of shirt as their family member or their spouse or partner. And that way, if they got separated, they would just look down at their own shirt and go, okay, I'm wearing a red shirt, I need to look for another red shirt. So that was a tip that they used to actually help them to find someone perhaps in a busy place. So this next resource is something that was referenced in that MERAP Bias Forest Guide, and I thought it was excellent. It took me a little bit to track it down. So this is what it looks like. So this is a great tip, great thing for a care partner to carry. With them, you can make your own. Let us know if this is something that would be helpful. We can get it to you. We just have it as a PDF, as a file right now. Hopefully in the future, we can make our own version here at the Alzheimer's Society. But it means that if you were out, for example, somewhere, maybe doing some shopping, what have you, and something happened to you in that moment, then responders would, when they look through your information, again, another great thing is to have a sticker on your own OHIP card to say that you are a care partner, and that way it triggers the first responders to know that there might be someone at home that needs some support. So this is some great information to keep and to have with you when you go out. So this is a form that you might have seen, especially if you're connected to here with the Alzheimer's Society in London Middlesex. It's a Kool-Aid form. And unfortunately, I don't believe this exists online, but if you need one, we can for sure get one to you. And it comes with a sticker. So the sticker is there in the middle, and the sticker would go on the outside of your door, and that would cue paramedics to know that this form is in your home. And this is great for care partners again. So if they come in, they have this information. You can also use it for the person living with dementia, but we want to make sure that the actual ID form is also filled out because it has a lot more information that is specific to a missing incident than is on this form. This form is much more medical and is still very important. So here are some online resources. These are the ones that I specifically referenced during the presentation, and I've just kind of labeled them to correspond to the difference. If you go back and watch this again, then you'll be able to kind of pinpoint these, and we'll make these available afterwards with the recording of this presentation as well. And these are some, I'll call anytime resources. So getting updated information about what's happening here at the Alzheimer's Society London Middlesex, from especially on our COVID page, and our Dementia Cares page, which has a lot of great resources for family care partners. A bunch of other references, again, if you want to take a look at them, things that I've looked through for this presentation, including if you're interested in the poem, then that is at the top there from Kate Swaffer. So my next question for you, and you can use your chat box, is which of these safety tips, strategies, ideas do you think will be most helpful to you going forward? If you could write something in the chat box, hopefully you learned something new today. Someone commented about writing a note on the door for the person with dementia. Yeah, that's a great one. And tags available for shoes. Yeah, that's a good one as well. And I need to kind of put my money where my mouth is and actually do that myself. From a safety perspective, as somebody who likes to go out running and having to do that on my own now because of COVID. So thank you for your feedback. Just a little bit about what's coming up next. So there's a lot of text on this screen. So we're very excited. We still have a little bit more with our safety webinars. So next Friday, Dina will be presenting on what to do if the person living with dementia goes missing. So now we're talking about trying to prevent or mitigate that from happening. But if it does happen, what do we do? And I am still collecting a little bit more information, just getting any updates from our local police services if there's anything new that we need to communicate with you. So we'll pass that along as well. And then the following Friday, we're very excited because we have another special guest presenter, Nolana Neubauer, who I've met many times, and she's very passionate about this. She is actually from Calgary, but she's also doing some work at the University of Waterloo. And she is again a co-founder of something called the International Consortium on Dementia and Wayfinding. So this is a topic that's very, very important to her. We've referenced some of her fruits of her labor earlier, some guidelines that she's worked on, so she'll talk about the research behind that, and she's just a fountain of knowledge, so hopefully you can join us for that. And if you have any other questions, please let us know. We'll have a bit of time for Q&A if you have any questions. And again, please touch base with your support worker if you want access to any of this or if you have any questions about it. And when you do finish this webinar, there is an evaluation that will pop up. So we do appreciate your feedback on the evaluation and any topics that you're interested in. So with that, thank you very much. And I think Dina will pop back on.
Thank you, Susan. That was a wonderful presentation. If anybody has any questions at this time, please feel free to add them in the question and answer box that I mentioned. And it's at the, again, it's located at the bottom of your screen. There's a little Q&A icon. And if you click on that, a window will appear, and then you can type in your question as you wish. And again, this webinar is an education presentation, so, and it's for your knowledge building. So if there's any specific information or questions that you have that's related to your specific situation, again, as Susan mentioned, it's really, really important to talk to your support worker to get some specific suggestions or advice.
Great. And also, if you have any, if there's something that you have been using or doing that you're like, wow, this has been really helpful for me, and it's something I didn't talk about, please share it with us. I gain a lot of really amazing knowledge. A few things that I share with you directly from our care partners. Things that like, wow, I never thought about that before. Again, the one about the maiden name, that was something that came from a care partner, and the taking a photo every day. So these are great tips. We see our people living, our clients living with dementia, and our care partners are really the experts in this.
If anyone has any comments or questions, or even just comments, you're welcome to share that with us as well.
And again, thanks for joining. Again, this is a topic that is so, Dina, I told you, like, this is my topic. I love this topic. I said a little story. My mom had Alzheimer's, and a little time ago, I won't tell you the whole story, it's very long, but she did go missing one time. It was when she was living with another family member. And you know, luckily she was found, somebody helped her, and she had a card with her that helped get her reconnected to a family member. But it was a real eye-opener. And this is long before I worked for the Alzheimer's Society. So it's always been something that's very, very passionate for me, because I realized that, you know, one day everything can be quite fine, and the next day things are not fine. So it's just about being prepared. So we got lucky, my mom got lucky, but it could have gone very differently. So thank you again. Have a wonderful Victoria Day weekend, and watch for the next newsletter with all of the upcoming events at the Alzheimer's Society in London and Middlesex that'll be coming out this weekend.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. We look forward to seeing you again. Take care.